Greetings! Hello, everybody. Okay, so I'm back here with my streaming about video games on video games. Okay, so there are a few things that I want to work out first. Let me put my icon here or here. Oh, I think here is better. Okay, so I opened this article posted by a very good friend of mine that I will not name right now on this occasion because I didn't ask for the permission. So it is polite first to ask for the permission, right? And I just wanted to say that my streaming on video games and on the content of video games, precisely on the apocalypse in the video games, we talked last times about Dante Alighieri's Inferno and Bloodstain, right? What's there? So we talked about the circles of hell, Gustave Doré's interpretation of Dante Alighieri, what alchemy is, what is its cultural heritage, and so forth. And we talked about a little bit about apocalypse. Okay, what is apocalypse from Revelation to the end of the world? And we traced the roots back to Zoroastrianism. And what is this? Actually, what is this attempt to read video games and popular culture? Because video games are part of popular culture. According to this narratives that involve very old stories, we name them myths. Okay, so we have the idea of a myth, and a myth is a story. It's a foundational story. It's a very old story that has a structure that can be found in many of our cultures, globally speaking. Okay, today I found an article, and of course I knew about Roland Barthes before because I studied philosophy, and this article of mine, okay, not my article, but I read a little bit about it, is about Roland Barthes and how he used semiotics to decode popular culture. Semiotics comes from semia, which is the science of interpreting signs. Well, what are signs? Of course, you can think about words, you can think about drawings, basically anything you can draw or write that has a meaning. That will be a sign. But let's first play this video, and it's a 2 minutes video, it's not a long one. And after that, we can see why we can actually approach video games from this perspective. Now, I wouldn't go that far with the stress on ideologies like as he does, because I believe that like being extremist is not my style. I don't know. I just don't like it. To have like a firm position towards what a thing means or not. So let's just approach this video with an open curiosity. Okay, so let's follow this one out.
Switch on the TV. What do you see? The breaking news graphic, the scrolling text, the news presenter behind the desk. Read the signs, the hair, the makeup, the suit. What is this story about? The rhythm of the words, numbers, colors. Why are these codes here? The music, the size of the letters. How do you feel? A news bulletin is a selection of signs. The flow of words, read of the autocue. The artifice of the presenter's cadence. The news voice. The gaze looking right at you, but through a lens. Visual stand-ins for credibility, authority, legitimacy. Rhetorical motifs constructing the biggest myth of all, that what we are watching is unmediated reality. This is what Roland Barthes would have seen. The TV screen as a cultural text, and he would have unveiled its myths. Because to read symbols and signs, to interpret them, is the work of a semiotician. In the 1950s, Barth started writing about popular culture. In his book Mythologies, he gathered multiple discordant subjects: food, horoscopes, religion, advertising, toys, photography, detergents. He saw this as elements of mass culture, imbued with ideology, providing society with the myths that once came from fables and epics.
Okay, so let's stop a little bit here. So we know this from advertising already. Those of you who don't, I'll just repeat this again. Everything that we buy, everything that we see in the newspapers or media, etc., 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 usually has a story, and this story must be very, very popular to sell. So what advertisers found to be very successful and useful for their businesses is infusing these products that have they are the gross foundation of reality in a way, like just interpret them as reality. Like a coffee is a coffee, nothing else. But when you label the coffee and you add up something that is mythological, something that is like the idea of an elixir from fairy tales and so forth, it gives you strength or power, whatever. It adds a different type of meaning, a different layer that will somehow hypnotize the viewer and make the viewer buy the coffee. So being exposed to this kind of narratives already has an effect on you. That's what it says. Okay, let's watch.
Barth said the starting point of these reflections was usually a feeling of impatience at the side of the naturalness with which newspapers, art, and common sense constantly dress up a reality which is undoubtedly determined by history. Barth didn't just spotlight the myths that surround us. He put back the curtain on their ideological premises. He warned us against taking all that surrounds us at face value. The fonts in your daily newspaper, they don't just reflect meaning, they add it, they change it. The framing of this show.
Okay, so this is something very interesting. I've given the example with the cup of coffee. Okay, just pick this one up. Okay, it doesn't have any label. Okay, it's a blue cup of coffee. Okay, so we can change the meaning of this cup of coffee, and when we present it to the viewer or potential buyer or the public that wants to buy, it can be coffee or any other product, right? We can actually change its meaning. We can change the story behind it. And because many times the viewers don't have access to those places where things happen, or so forth, they are mediated by social media or by television and so forth. We can actually change the way the viewers perceive reality.
What's the history behind it? The selfie, the latest representation of the bourgeois individual. The stick, a seal of authenticity, of status. The subtitle, the voice as text. What could be more Barthesian?
Okay, so we're talking about text, reading video games, so we interpret them as text. We try to find the sources, the cultural sources. Interpreting is not actually my goal. Maybe it will be in the future, but first of all, I want to break the video games in their basic elements. So I will just undo and show what is what things come from what source and so forth, and how they are interconnected. So in order to do that, of course, I have to play the video games, but this is not necessarily about playing. So those who want to see and play video games for fun, are invited to just follow those streamers who play video games and they're just playing. I want to read them. I want to understand the content that shaped the video games from the apocalyptic point of view. It's a huge universe that we are given, popular culture, generally speaking, but video games in particular is also immense. So I cannot thoroughly, because I've been asked a few years ago when I wrote my thesis about the apocalypse in survival horror video games. I've been asked like, oh, did you play this game? Did you play that game? No, I haven't played all these games. Why? I've chosen a few of them that I can interpret and I can read carefully. Okay, so and somehow my reading should bring profound look at how these things were created from a narrative standpoint. Okay, so that's the main idea. Now let's have a look, a closer look at this article. I haven't read it yet, okay, but I'll do that very fast. 1979, French theorist Jean-François Lyotard declared the end of all grand narratives. Every theory or intellectual system, as Blackwell's dictionary defines the term, which attempts to provide a comprehensive explanation of human experience and knowledge, the announcement arrived with all the rhetorical bombast of Nietzsche's God is dead. Okay, so what does it mean? The belief in ideologies, the belief of the masses in stories like, oh, there is a God in heaven, or like those people who believed in the far right, or those people who were extremists in the opposite sense. Okay, those people who believed in the idea of progress in changing society, like they lost their drive, and that's why Lyotard said, like, there are no more grand narratives. Everything breaks apart. Okay, so we can interpret things from a personal standpoint. Okay, so of course this goes hand in hand with the scientific theory and Einstein's theory of relativity. Everything is relative. Okay, so we have this loosening of belief in an idea or another. Okay, and this has implications in society, of course. Freudian psychology, Marxism, okay, I go on with the reading. The announcement arrived with all the rhetorical bombast of Nietzsche's God is dead, sweeping not only theology into the dustbin, but also overarching scientific theories, Freudian psychology, Marxism, and every other totalizing explanation. But as Lyotard himself explained in his book, The Postmodern Condition, the loss of universal coherence, or the illusion of coherence, had taken decades. A transition, he wrote, underway since at least the end of 1950s. Okay, so there was a transition. Now, you can imagine that actually this happened because in the 20th century we had two world wars, okay, and the entire globe was engaged into this warfare and crimes and everything. So after that, the populations, the societies changed. This is a huge trauma that actually a war takes your energy away. Like that's what it means. It's the expense of resources. So it's traumatic. So you need time to heal. Now, narrative, the great narrative, the belief in God or the belief in progress or any other type of grand narrative, it's a driving force that motivates the population to move forward towards a direction, towards change, a revolution, you may say. Now, what's going on here is after such traumas like two world wars in the 20th centuries, perhaps the states decided, okay, let's not put so much emphasis on these narratives because they have a very dangerous potential. Okay, people can hypnotize other people and make them believe certain things are real and make them believe they should take action because of that. Okay, and this is what happens, catastrophes over catastrophes and so forth. Now, going back to the text, we might date the onset of postmodernism at the end of modern narratives even earlier, to the devastation at the end of World War II and the appearance of Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer's Dialectic of Enlightenment, and of Roland Barthes's volume Mythologies, a collection of essays written between 1954 and 56 in which the French literature theorist and cultural critic put to work his understanding of Ferdinand de Saussure's Semiotics. That's very interesting because Semiotics, according to Saussure, can be applied to anything that is in the universe. So it's not just language, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, those years, long past, long in the past, right? As a result of reading the Swiss linguist Barth wrote in a preface to the 1970s edition of his book, he had acquired a conviction that by treating collective representation as a science system, one might hope to go further than the pious show of unmasking them and account in detail for the mystification which transforms petit bourgeois culture into a universal nature. Let's read this again and try to understand this. As a result of reading the Swiss linguist, okay, this is Saussure, Barth wrote in a preface to the 1970s edition of his book, he had acquired the conviction that by treating collective representations as a science system, one might hope to go further than the pious show of unmasking them and account in detail for the mystification which transforms petit bourgeois culture into a universal nature. Okay, now this is something that I didn't actually aim at when unmasking the narratives of the video game, so I don't go that deep. Maybe I can find such a thing, but I'm still here at the unmasking them. Okay, so maybe not even all of them, because my task here now is apocalyptic video games. So I follow the apocalyptic narrative, the end of the world, and how it drives all these cultural symbols from apocalyptic writings, and of course that involves religion as well, and also literature, horror movies, and Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy. I like that book. Okay, so while generally lumped into the category of structuralist thinkers as opposed to post-structuralists like Lyotard, Barth nonetheless paved the way for a particularly French mistrust of petit bourgeois culture and its populist spectacles and all-knowing talking heads. Okay, think about Rorschach from Watchmen. Okay, the way he talked about the smooth talkers. Okay, we can have something like that here. Not believing the storytellers to the end, and yeah, you'll be surprised. Maybe this can go as far as trusting that person near you that is very good at telling things that are pleasing to the ears of the others. Okay, there are some people that are genuinely intelligent when it comes to EQ, emotional intelligence. So they know how to play other people. They know how to manipulate them in a pleasant way. So you may think of them as sweet talkers. Okay, so they can read you. They can read your intention. They can read your desire. And they can offer you what you want to hear. And by doing that, they can make sure that you will follow a certain path. So this is exactly what advertising did in 20th century. And of course, other things like institutions like I want to say institution. How do you call that? Hollywood, for example, okay, or media in general. And he was an opponent of totalizing narrative, just as he was an unrelenting opponent of French imperialism, writes Richard Brody at the New Yorker. Okay, so totalizing narratives is taking a story and presenting it as being the truth 100%. Okay, it's not just a story, it's the truth in itself. So like this is when in terms of apocalypse, you try to immanentize. Let me search that term. I like immanentize. Yeah, immanentize the eschaton. Was it that or not? Yes. What's immanentize the eschaton? I'm talking about this right now, and I'm switching pages because this is go on. I'm clicking, doesn't work. Opening new tab. Wow. Okay, in political theory to immanentize the eschaton means trying to bring about the eschaton, the final heaven-like stage of history, in the immanent world, meaning in society right here, right now. Okay, now this concept means trying to make that which belongs to the afterlife happen here and now on Earth. Now, technologically, the belief is akin to post-millennialism as reflected in the social gospel era, as well as Protestant reform movement during the Second Great Awakening in 1830s, 1840s, such as abolitionism. Okay, I won't go with reading all the article. There are other political projects that try to do this, even if they aren't related to religion. So you can imagine that, and it's not totally wrong in the sense that an utopia, a better world, it's a fictional world before you do it, before you create it. In order to create it, you have to start something that is so-called revolution. Okay, what happens this? What happens when this happens is there will be a change, and this change usually implies violence, and it might not be sure that the outcome is better than the war that was left behind. So it's a drastic change in history. It's a drastic change in society, and well, this happened a few times in the past centuries. Okay, so this being said, we are going back to where was the article? Oh, no, this is not what I'm looking for. Where was it? Oh, this is not exactly. Yeah. Okay. So going back to where was I? Okay. Okay, let's just what generally lumped into the category structuralist things as opposed to post-structuralist like the other. Okay, this I read. We're going downwards a little bit. Yeah, I lost the lines that I was reading before. All right, so let's follow this video. It's a different one. Let's try to understand a little bit more about his approach.
Welcome to the Macat Multimedia Series, a Macat analysis of Roland Barthes' mythologies. How can dominant ideologies successfully present themselves as simply the way the world should be? The French theorist Roland Barthes thought they did so by appropriating popular culture and repurposing it. He believed they drained popular ideas of their real meaning and then repackaged them to create myths that carried new and often very different implications. Writing in Mythologies, a collection of essays published in 1957, Barthes looked at examples drawn from everyday French life, from advertisements to the world of wrestling. His aim was to show that images, which he called signs, were stripped of meaning when they were removed from their proper context.
Okay, so it's very important, and that's why I emphasize the importance of the paratext in video games. What is paratext? So I'll give you a demo. For this, I have to go, and while I talk, you will see a different screen, and this is be right back. But I'm still here talking to you while I gently open a video game to understand what I talk about directly from the video game. Now, where is that? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna play. I will start again Resident Evil 2, the remake version, because, well, it can be any other game, to be honest. But I already analyzed this video game, the old version of it, many years ago. Not so many, but you know. And according to my interpretation, there are a lot of motives, a lot of mythologies, and a lot of content in the layers that surround the avatar, and that is the paratext. Okay, so here it is. 3, 2, 1, and okay, action. Let me see here. Dun 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 dun. Yep. Okay, so here we are, Resident Evil 2. So we'll go on with the story. Okay, like that. It's supposed to be full screen. I don't like full screen. Okay. I will just continue the game while talking about what happened in the game from the beginning. It's not actually important for my purposes to play the game along, demonstrate what I have to demonstrate. I talked about this video game and about the conflict between the image of the father and the conflict between the father and the son, and the implications of these stuffed animals in Resident Evil narrative. I just hope that Nemesis won't come after me, or whatever that monster is called in this remake of the Resident Evil series. Okay, so we have the typewriting machine. Okay, what's a typewriting machine? You can write on it, right? So what do you do with it in Resident Evil? You save the game. What does it mean? Well, from a Barthian point of view, this is creating a new type of meaning on top of an older device, which is the typewriting machine. So, generally speaking, a typewriting machine is not something that makes you feel safe. I mean, like, people used it for their work. If they were journalists, they would write an article with it, right? Didn't have keyboards, Today we have typewriting machines attached to our computers. They're the same thing, so it's a physical device. So why not a computer? We're in 2020, right? Well, employing all technologies, remediating them. Do I hear? So remediating this typewriting machine into a saving device, connecting the life of the avatar with it, like is something that creates a different type of atmosphere in the game. And this atmosphere is an atmosphere that is also put in the context, namely in the paratext, in the thing that surrounds the avatar, the decorations, the stuffed animals that convey the same idea of giving another interpretation, another meaning to what was once called an animal. Now, giving another meaning in what sense? Well, they become toys. They are devoid of their power. That's not a bull anymore. If you look at this animal, or the deer, okay, so you have them here, or the ram, or the eagle, okay, majestically displayed there. They don't show us power. They are objects, okay, they are objects like in a museum. They stay there, and their sole purpose is that of conveying a sense of aesthetic pleasure, beauty, and of course that goes for the purpose of describing the personality of Iron Banks, which is the chief of the police in Raccoon City. So I talked about what type of personality he is and so forth in our previous sessions, but I'll just go here next to the crocodile. Okay, so you have a very powerful animal here, the crocodile, with the jaws open, but it's like ready to attack. But what it shows, like it's totally devoid of power. And the same type of technique was employed by the Roman Empire in the past, when they carried animals like lions in the arenas. So they could instill the idea that the empire is very powerful because it can contain and toy and play with such fierce animals that are very, very dangerous for common folk. So they will instill this idea of power, the power of the authority, the power of the empire, the power of those who can stuff animals like this. So this is for control, basically speaking. Okay, so it's a way of instilling control by showing your power. Okay, no, she's not here yet. So we have a wolf, a very dangerous animal. If you meet it alone or in a pack, it can eat you alive. Okay, and then we have the Little Red Riding Hood here. She's an innocent girl. She's dressed in red, right? And you have the big bad wolf there. However, the big bad wolf here is something else. It's not the animal per se. The big bad wolf is the context. It's displayed on the context. This context that usually doesn't require to be read and understood from a theoretical point of view. So when you think about understanding the paratext and every symbol there in order to have an effect upon your mind, that's totally wrong. This is not what Barth suggests. You just need to perceive it, and its effect will download into your brain. That's why you're buying the product. That's why you're buying the coffee that transmits the idea of perfection, whatever it is that you want, happiness, and so forth. That is copy-pasted from a source which is a myth. It's a story. It's a fairy tale. So going back to Barth, I'll just come on. Okay, where is? this, yeah. Okay, let's play the video from where it was. Bart's well, on this video we have this woman and the context. Okay, so what does it mean is that if you cut the woman from the context, the spell is broken. So it doesn't have the same power as it has when you have it on the cover of the magazine. So that's why playing Resident Evil, for example, must be put in context. Okay, so paratext is paramount. Paratext is paramount. It's very, very important to create the feeling of immersion in another type of universe. So this is exactly what Barth said, that recreating the relations between the objects of a narrative, okay, is recreating the structure of signs. And the structure of signs is what creates the spell or the make-believe action that will drive the viewer or the player into that universe and make the viewer accept the game, accept the story as if it was real. Of course, we know the coffee is not the way, is not going to lead us to paradise, literally speaking. But creating that thought in our heads will change the way we drink the coffee. So it will lift our mood and so on. Okay, so yeah, we compromise for less in a way, right? It's better than nothing though. So let's go back to Barth, as I said earlier, and listen to what this guy has to say in this video.
The result, he thought, was the spread of a uniform, unthreatening, and above all, bourgeois ideology. A comfort blanket of myth that might be cozy and reassuring, but could easily prove stifling. To understand what Barth meant, consider the iconic image of a charismatic revolutionary. What did he really stand for? How has he been depicted in popular culture? And what does his iconic image represent today?
Is that Che Guevara? Like, not exactly, but... Yeah.
Barth argues that the signs that society projects onto our revolutionary bear very little relation to his actual qualities. The reality was that he was willing to kill to achieve political aims, and that the state he helped to forge was more repressive and less free than his public statements might suggest. Stripped of this context, though, his image becomes a sign with other uses. It can exploit consumers' eagerness to identify with qualities that they believe symbolize youthfulness, rebelliousness, hatred of authority. Companies that exploit the image, Barth explains, introduce a second-order signification, a new myth, one that symbolizes something different. It's an image drained of real meaning, one that no longer refers to the revolutionary's real beliefs. Before long, the famous photograph is appropriated to sell all sorts of products: t-shirts, beer, even washing powder. So when Sophia goes to a shop and buys a t-shirt with our revolutionary's face on it, she thinks she's making a statement about her individualism, rebellion, and anti-capitalism, when in truth, the image is now a capitalist commodity. By buying the t-shirt, she buys into that conformity.
Okay, so we have two stages here. The reality, okay, that's the first stage. We don't have access to the reality because, well, at least I don't have. All I got about Che Guevara, for example, because obviously this is pointing directly to the icon of Che Guevara, which is exactly the revolutionary, anarchic, and the rebellion against authority. This is what I had. And I remember when I was in high school, I think I was singing this song and so forth. I didn't know exactly what I meant, but I was carried on by the music. And I was like, you know, just swimming with the crowd in the ocean of punk rock music and stuff like that. It was quite pleasant. So I needed to bond, I wanted to meet people and so forth. So yeah, if you have a t-shirt with this image, you were accepted in the community. It was easier for you to like get a girlfriend or something like that. So I accepted these icons and I carried them on because it was in my interest to fit in the society, in the society of my age. Now, what happens here? That was actually the first myth that was interposed, according to this video, upon a reality that wasn't that pleasant. Okay, that guy was a murderer. Well, definitely he killed people. This is what people do in wars, they kill each other, right? So if you do that, probably you're not such a good person. Well, think about the Buddhists who say don't harm any sentient being, not even with your thoughts. So how can you create a mythology that is, you know, something like a rebellion, so forth, so forth, so forth? Well, you need a context. You copy an image and you reproduce those type of relations between the elements. That's the idea. Okay, but let's view. On top of that, okay, this image that was used to show, to instill rebellion and anarchy was already a reality, a second-grade reality. It had nothing to do with the revolution anymore, because people around the world, those who buy T-shirts, punk rockers and so forth, they are not doing any revolution. They just want to have fun. Now, this is a fact already in popular culture across the globe. So that image was transfused into other objects. So it became a business. So the coffee with the image of Comandante on top has nothing to do with the revolution, but anyway, you are tempted to buy it because you want to relive those moments from the high school that brought you joy, because you connected with other things. Okay, let's watch.
It's a sort of rebellion her bourgeois society is happy to live with. Popular culture has taken a real person whose real ideas posed real danger and turned him into an image which, Barth would point out, has been safely reinvented as myth. Roland Barthes's writings have had a huge influence on the ways that critics seek to deconstruct and examine meaning. A more detailed examination of his ideas can be found in the McCat analysis.
So I'm gonna just follow this McCat. Okay, I don't know what it is, but we'll find out very, very soon. Well, McCat Academy. What was that? McCat. I don't advertise for this thing. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to look at it. But because I opened the Resident Evil video game, I will just come back to it and talk about Apocalypse. So basically what I said earlier about video games, video game narratives, apocalyptic video games and so forth, it's exactly this. Is why is it window? It's talking about the apocalyptic narrative, and see how this structure is used everywhere around the game. This is what fascinates me, the care about the details. Okay, so it's just like a fractal. So you can imagine the apocalyptic fractal that has some relations in itself. So and these relations happen between certain types of dynamic objects. Okay, so you have this kind of tensions between entities, if you want, or tensions between elements. So there are elements, just like you're trying to cook something. Okay, so you're trying to create an image. In this case, you're creating a game. So a video game is just like the poster with Che Guevara, exactly like that, but add up time and add up interaction. So we have immersion and interaction, interactivity, because the player can change some parts of the element and the structure. And this is also by design. By design in the sense that they want to put you in the mood of the apocalyptic feeling. What is that feeling? Well, how would you feel if you were a girl? Not that I'm advertising these kind of things, but how would you feel as a vulnerable being surrounded by dangers that want to disembody you, dangers that want to tear you apart, because this is what the zombies are, right? Dangerous beings, savages, savage animals, devoided by culture. So revelation, because apocalypse, right? That's what it means. Apocalypse means revelation. Revelation is like the stripping off of culture in this sense. So it's like renouncing everything that is sign, everything that is text, everything that was constructed, everything that made us human. So it's dehumanizing the being. So this is a human being in peril, okay? And of course, you can think of Shakespeare. You can think about Titus, the Shakespearean tragedy, right? Titus Andronicus, who had a daughter, Lavinia. That was a symbol of the Roman Empire. I will go back to the Roman Empire because her hands were chopped off, right, by the gods, the sons of the new empress. Okay, and she represents the Roman Empire that succumbed because of the invasions of those populations that were once conquered by it. So Lavinia, the daughter of Titus Andronicus, let's have a look at it, with her chopped hands. Yeah. Chopped hands, chop. Okay, let's see here. Horrible things. Okay, so Lavinia, chopped hands, Titus. Let's see, this goes there. Dum 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 dum. Yeah, you can see her here. Titus Andronicus. This is the image of Lavinia. She's the symbol of Rome. She's the symbol of a culture, of an empire, symbol of art, symbol of a destroyed culture. Okay, so and this culture was destroyed by the representatives, the sons. I forgot the name of that character. Okay, but those were gods. What were gods? Were the populations that were conquered some time ago by the Roman Empire. Okay, so basically the Roman Empire was threatened by all these populations all the time who wanted to take revenge and come back at its borders. So they had to fight them all the time. So it's the decadence of the Roman Empire, and is the erosion of the Roman Empire, because we are very, very much connected to the hand, and hand is a symbol. Okay, the hand is not just a body part. Hands are the instrument of who we are, of our identity, because we use them all the time to express our will and to fulfill our wishes and desires. Use the hand to write, use the hand to do so many things, right? So it is connected. It is a very personal thing, so it is intimate. So this is an image of a rape, and not a classic rape in that sense. A rape that expresses the loss of your power to act. So without its power to act, Lavinia and Rome becomes something very similar to these animals displayed on the walls. Because Lavinia is nothing else, Roman Empire is nothing else but a memory of something that was once beautiful and powerful, but now doesn't have any other power. I'll just choose the deer because, well, because culture. So it is also the symbol of rape, abuse, violence, violence instilled, violence that shapes something beautiful and alive and transforms it into something aesthetic and educational as a lesson of history. So we're going back to the typewriting machine. Okay, in this context, we have the girl here. The girl is trying to survive this mess. She's just like any of these animals, in peril, just like the Roman Empire, just like Lavinia, to be abused, but more than that, totally destroyed. Okay, so what we witness here are biological and anatomical ruins. Okay, cadavers, corpses displayed as a lesson of history, corpses displayed as a show of power, because, okay, in that sense, Lavinia, if we go back to that image, very powerful image, look at that. Okay, they put branches instead of hands, okay, to mimic the function of the hands. And this is how you can reshape something and adapt something, okay? Those branches don't have any use except to produce a higher pain. So like being stripped off of power is one thing, but being humiliated after that is like, this is when the authority displays its full its full power over that being that is fragile and at its mercy. So the Roman Empire did the same thing with the early Christians. Let's remember how they were tortured by Nero and other emperors. And of course, it was a show for the population. Population would watch that, have fun while watching the suffering of others. So the gods, the two godsons, right? They chopped her hands off, and then they put branches on top to laugh at her, to humiliate her even more. So to damage even more the identity of what was once Rome, because this is what Lavinia is, a symbol of Rome. So on the corpse of Lavinia, on the corpse of Rome, we have this play, Shakespearean play, Titus Andronicus. And there are other plays, even modern plays, that problematize exactly the same topic. Now, if you go back, if we go back to the Resident Evil paratext, and you can see the wolves there, we can see the same idea of stuffed animals, corpses that are not alive. They are stripped of their original identity and refashioned, okay, into something else. Now we can think about Che Guevara one more time. I just like repeating myself. Okay, so we go back to Che Guevara. What was Che Guevara? Where's the article? Yeah. Oh yeah. So
produce as image becomes a sign with other uses. It can exploit consumers' eagerness to identify with qualities that they believe symbolize youthfulness, rebelliousness, hatred of authority.
Okay, so we strip off the image of Lavinia originally. So you can imagine Lavinia. Who was Lavinia? Originally, Lavinia was the symbol of beauty, purity, perfection, if you want. Feminine beauty, of course. So it was fertility, richness. Okay, something fertile is something that grows, gives more of that. Okay, fruitfulness, and in the moment that her hands were chopped off, everything that she represented was refashioned. So it became something else. She became the image of erosion. She became the image of abuse, and in a way you may say decadence, but in the same that it's the fall of an empire. So it's not decadence in the sense of moral decadence, because the contrast here, although the image in itself has all these elements, we don't see the godsons who chopped her hands off, but they are present there in the very act of not having hands. Okay, who did that? They did that. Okay, so it is also decadence because the abusers are present within the wound of the victim. So this contrast between elements, the contrast between an abuser and its victim, between power and fragility, between violence and passivity, okay, between masters and slaves, okay. So we have a dialectics here, so this tension between the elements. Now, everything is shaped in this image, and as we can see, and we see it again, it happens in the same way, in the same styles with animals, stuffed animals, and horror video games, survival horror video games. Now, why is this important for our interpretation here? Is because in Titus Andronicus, if you look back at Lavinia, and if you think about Lavinia as being the representative of the Roman Empire overall, okay, so it's the destruction of a civilization, of a culture that's eroded and transforms into a ruin. So the ruin of a civilization, the ruin of a culture, the ruin of a society, the ruin of an empire becomes in survival horror video games. Probably the inspiration for taxidermy, because these stuffed animals, if you put them in the context, we have the city of Raccoon, surrounding them. Now, raccoon is a nice animal, right? Like but can carry rabies and can go berserk. This is the raccoon, Raccoon City. The stuffed raccoon. So this one is safe. However, in the context of apocalypse, zombie apocalypse, pandemics, okay, so we have this context of pandemics and apocalypse. The little raccoon, that's a symbol for the city, and the city itself, okay, is eroded, it becomes a ruin. Just in the same fashion, symbolically speaking, it has the same kind of tension between elements. We have the abusers, the zombies, that come and eat and devour and erode the city, kill the people, devoid them, strip them off of their identity and humanity. And this is displayed here in Iron Bank's office. Chief Iron Banks, look at him, right? This is the big bad wolf. Yeah, so there are many myths overlapped in this video game. I find it truly fascinating, and a lot of symbols from other religious and mythological backgrounds. So all this are reshaped, reinterpreted, they give another significance, but they do represent their purpose for the apocalyptic narrative. It's the end of the world that is symbolically represented by the body, the human body, just like in Titus Andronicus. So, chopped hands here, that's a horrific image. It's not something, like, you see the purity, that, and then it's the blood there, it's like, we are shocked. And we can see this is over. Like, those hands won't grow back. And the irony of having some branches sprouting out of them, it's both cruel and hilarious in a very sadistic way. So, the irony, the cruelty, the gorish acts and so forth are part of the same idea in Shakespeare's play as well. So what I mean is the fact that Shakespeare in Titus Andronicus depicted the fall of Rome, the fall of the Roman civilization when it was invaded by the Goths. Okay, so whatever the reason, this is similar with the idea, structurally speaking, of the end of the world, or eschatology, or apocalyptic views. So even if you think about the apocalypse, the revelation in the Bible, John had many references that point to the Roman Empire. So it might have been a political device all the time in history to depict the end of an era as being the end of a world. Okay, so something is destroyed, and this happens by connecting both beauty and violence. So it is the contrast between something that is, whole, and because it's whole, is harmoniously shaped, and in this case, in Titus Andronicus, Lavinia is a symbol of perfection. So you may think about Roman Empire as being something perfect, almost perfect, because what Shakespeare experienced in his days was something less than the Roman structure. So Romans, they were very, very much advanced at so many levels that probably England that in Shakespeare's time didn't or wasn't matching with. But it's the idea of the end of something beautiful, the end of something that had a meaning, a sense, and promise something fertile, something that we can name a future. So this is violently, savagely, cruelly, sadistically, gruesomely ended. Not by something or someone similar that matches the virtuous qualities of Lavinia or Roman Empire, something like that. No, savages who don't care about all these meanings. Savages like the gods, who are just like the zombies. They just go hungry to take because they can. So, of course, in horror video games, literally we have zombies in these narratives, but if you think about Zoroastrianism as the main source, then you have the Zoroastrianist eschatology. Zoroastrian eschatology. Okay. So, where is? Well, we won't go everywhere, but the main idea is that the end of the world, according to Zoroastrianism, Christianism, and other spiritual traditions that view it this way, was depicted using exaggerated images of natural cataclysms and violent outcomes. Of course, we can we do remember. Okay, let's just look here. Let's see. Things fighting. Oh. Okay, I want eschatology. Apocalypse. Let's look at Apocalypse. The idea of apocalypse or revelation, revolution, so forth, okay, it implies a huge change, and this change happens between mythological mythological fights, huge fights between the forces of the good and the evil against each other. Okay, so you can see demon-like creature eating people, and this is a horror scenario. Okay, so apocalyptic scenario is something that means revelation of the truth, but in a horrific way. It's not pleasant unless you are very virtuous. So there is salvation for the few. Now all this is highly connected to Shakespearean play Titus and Andronicus in the image of Lavinia. It shows just the end of the Roman Empire. It's not me who makes this interpretation. There are others. Just search the internet. What I'm doing here is connecting these two to explain what's going on in Resident Evil and what you may experience together with the anxiety and the primal fear of not being eaten by the zombies, like sitting too much, staying too much in the office of Iron Bank because there are no zombies here. Why? Because you're afraid to leave this room. I'm afraid. I'm literally afraid because I can hear that door. It's like he's coming. Okay, those are the gods that knock at the doors of the Roman Empire. Okay, those are the dark forces that try to corrupt you and destroy you and devour you, transform you into one of these objects, inanimate, devoid of soul objects. Okay, so basically you are not there. Nobody's there. There is no soul. Nobody there. Just a reflection of the power of the conqueror. So, this being said, I hope that what I talked about is interesting enough for you people to hit the like button, and for some of you, who knows, I have a Patreon page I started not a long time ago, so I'm still working on these things. I'm still working on polishing my interpretation and my tools of reading video games from a cultural standpoint, and I hope that connecting Roland Barthes with the narrative of Apocalypse brings some light into what these things are about. And let's remember that we actually live in 2020, a year that is very much different, and it does imply a change in our society, global society. It's a huge change in the world, because we have the coronavirus pandemics, right? So it's very much similar to those apocalyptic scenarios, and more conspiracy theories are employed throughout the social media and so forth. Now, I'm not advocating towards this conspiracy theory. So personally, I suggest that it's safer to have a cultural approach and see them as narrative. Don't invest a lot of meaning in them, because when this happened in history, people went astray, they killed each other, and maybe this was good business for some people, but it led to huge catastrophes around the world. So this narrative, the apocalyptic narratives, is not totally powerless. Okay, so once you believe in something, the power of belief is something very, very dangerous in our society. So yeah, you may think of it this way. So that being said, from my chair, I salute you, and I hope you enjoy my reading on video games, and see you soon. So that's it for today. Okay, alright, so I will leave you with a few images of the gameplay, and let's have a look what can happen here. Whoa, okay, this is, oh my god, run away. The touch of the monster, the horrific touch of the monster, hide and seek, catch me if you can, and so forth. Oh, is he here? Oh, no, he didn't enter the room. And one thing about Apocalypse is the feeling of timelessness. The end of history is also the end of chronological time. And think about what happens in coronavirus pandemics, just to convey this, because there is an analogy between these two things. Time stopped. People don't go to school, and they don't go to work anymore the way they used to. Okay, so it's another time. It's another type of time flow. So we will talk about this next time, because it's also a huge topic. I want to say it again and again, because, well, I just like reading things. So, see you very soon. And until then, as some people say, stay awesome. Why not? Then, come on. Chop, chop.